Have you ever looked at the numbers in an ancient text and wondered, is that just a coincidence, or is there something deeper going on? Today, we're diving into the fascinating claims of a book called The Cosmic Cipher by Tamujani Yusuf. It argues that the Quran isn't just a text, but that it actually contains a hidden mathematical code. So let's unpack this theory and see what it's all about.
And this really is the central question, isn't it? When you look at the structure of the Quran, you see 114 chapters. You see 25 prophets named specifically. Is all of that just random chance? Or, as this theory suggests, could it be the fingerprint of a deliberate, divine design?
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll get into the core philosophy. What does it even mean for a book to be a divine program? Then, we'll look at the foundational numbers that supposedly act as the key to this code. After that, we'll explore the much larger structural patterns. And finally, we'll step back and weigh the big question. Is this a miracle, or is it all just human interpretation? So, the book's core premise is that the Quran is basically a divine program. The argument is that the text isn't just written in the Arabic language, but it's also written in the universal language of mathematics. The idea is that it mirrors the very structure of the cosmos itself. Now, there's actually a name for this field of study, ijaz adadi, which translates to numerical miracles. And the central idea here is pretty straightforward, that these patterns are so complex, so interwoven and consistent that they couldn't possibly be man-made. They must, therefore, point to a divine author.
And this is where the theory draws a really powerful parallel. I mean, we see mathematical order everywhere in nature, right? Think of the Fibonacci sequence in a sunflower seeds or the golden ratio in a nautilus shell. The argument is that the Quran reflects this exact same kind of mathematical precision, suggesting that the one who authored nature also authored the scripture.
Proponents of the theory point to verses just like this one to support their case. The key phrase here is bil haq, or with truth. They argue that this truth isn't just some abstract moral concept. No, they believe it refers to a precise, logical, almost mathematical design that underpins all of creation. Okay, so how is this cosmic code actually built? Well, according to the theory, the entire system rests on the significance of just a couple of foundational numbers. It all starts with the numbers 1 and 7. First up, we've got the number 7. In this theory, 7 is a cornerstone of the whole cosmic code. Its constant recurrence throughout the Quran isn't seen as random at all, but as a major piece of evidence for a deliberate, repeating pattern. For instance, check this out. The theory highlights that the Arabic word for heavens appears exactly 7 times, and that lines up perfectly with the text's own mention of 7 heavens. On top of that, the Quran's very first chapter and its most important one, Al-Fatiha, has exactly 7 verses. Coincidence or design? That's the question the theory keeps asking. But here's the thing. If 7 is a cornerstone, then the number 1, well, that's the absolute foundation of the entire structure. In this theory, every single pattern, every calculation is ultimately designed to point back to this one incredibly powerful idea.
And that idea is Tauhid, the core Islamic belief in the absolute indivisible oneness of God. The argument is that just as all numbers in mathematics ultimately derive from the number 1, all of the so-called codes in the Quran are there to reinforce this single theological principle. The math is designed to serve the theology. That's the crucial insight here.
Okay, let's zoom out from these individual digits and look at the bigger picture. The theory doesn't stop with small numbers. It moves on to these larger structural codes, trying to explain the significance of 2 really key numbers, 25 for the named prophets and 114 for the total chapters. So, let's start with this. Why 25? I mean, if you look at other religious sources, they suggest many more prophets existed. So why does the Quranic text explicitly name this exact number? The theory argues this is absolutely not arbitrary. It's a key part of the code.
And the proposed answer is a grid, a 5x5 prophetic grid. The idea is that the 25 named prophets can be arranged thematically into this structure. The rows and columns represent big concepts like beginnings, trials, victory, and completion. So you'll see, for example, Adam is placed at the start, representing beginnings, and Muhammad at the very end, representing completion.
So what's the logic behind all this? Well, it's pretty layered. The number 5 is presented as deeply symbolic, representing both the 5 pillars of Islam and the 5 pillars of faith. Multiply them, 5 times 5, and you get 25, a perfect square, which is said to symbolize divine stability and completeness. And then, if you add the digits, 2 plus 5, what do you get? 7. It all connects back to that cosmic number of the heavens.
Now, what about the big one? The total number of chapters, or surahs, in the Quran, 114. You guessed it, the theory says this number is also no accident. It's presented as the product of a very specific, meaningful equation, 19 multiplied by 6.
So where on earth does 19 come from? The theory links it to a system of gematria, or numerology, called abjad, where Arabic letters have numerical values. And in that system, the word wahid, which means one, adds up to exactly 19. So the number 19 becomes a direct numerical symbol for God's oneness, for a Tauhid.
And this isn't just a number pulled from complex calculations. Proponents point directly to this verse, which explicitly says, "Over it are 19." The argument is that this isn't just some random detail about angels, but that it's a deliberate key, a hint left in the text to help unlock its entire structure.
But, okay, let's be real. A theory this grand, this out there, is bound to have its critics, right? So for our last section, let's look at the main objections to this whole mathematical cipher idea and the answers that the book itself offers up.
All right, let's walk through the big points of debate. First, the objection. This is just forbidden numerology. The book's answer is that it's not about fortune-telling. It's about presenting scientific-style proof of design. Next objection. Hey, there are way more than 25 prophets. The response is that the code is based only on the 25 who are explicitly named in the text. And finally, the big why. Why would God even use math? The reply goes right back to the beginning. It's the language of creation, the same language we see in nature.
To add another layer to its argument, the theory also points to similar traditions in other faiths. It brings up gematria in Judaism, where numbers like 18 stand for life, or the significance of numbers like 7 and 40 in Christianity. The suggestion here is that maybe, just maybe, finding these kinds of numerical systems across different scriptures could point to a single, common, divine source. So, after all of that, what's the actual takeaway? It's really important to get this. The book isn't trying to say, we've cracked it, case closed. It actually presents these ideas not as some final absolute truth, but more as a pathway to engage with the text on a much deeper level. And that gets to the ultimate goal, which is to encourage something called tadabbur, an Arabic word that means deep, contemplative reflection. So whether you're convinced by the numbers or not, the hope is that this kind of exploration sparks new thoughts and gives you a new appreciation for just how intricate the text structure might be. And that brings us to the final, thought-provoking question that the book leaves its readers with. The focus kind of shifts from trying to prove the code to just pondering its implications. If these patterns are deliberate, then how great must the creator be who designed this code in the first place? And that's a question left for us to reflect on.